to stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by 15 seconds of silence. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call.
Ethan Maple,
Here.
Ryan Hartley,
Here.
Chad Molinder,
Here.
Bill Niemeyer,
Here.
and Terry Reed.
Here. Thank you. We're going to move the public comment section up before the old business. But before that, we're going to have Mr. Bosma explain. He's going to review the ordinances that we're doing this evening.
Good evening, Brian Bosma of the law firm of Herbert Artis and Regas, serving as town council and your bond counsel. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Thank you.
I'll just walk through where we've been on this process. The council began this on September 18th, actually prior to September 18th, but your first official action was on September 18 to approve a financial assistance agreement with the state revolving wastewater fund. Then on October 2, the two ordinances that before you tonight, the bond ordinance and the rate ordinance, were introduced. We subsequently published, posted, and mailed notice to the public as required, actually a little bit more, as it went in two publications, both the Star and your local paper here. Then you all conducted your public hearing on October 16th. The engineer, Commonwealth Engineering, opened bids on the 23rd, and you're here now tonight to consider the adoption of both the rate ordinance and the bond ordinance. There are no changes to the bond ordinance. It is as was introduced. The parameters in it were maximum parameters. We can't go over any of those. If the final calculations are a little bit less than $25 million, then we can downsize that at the end. I do understand there's an amendment to the rate ordinance tonight to lower the proposed rates. We'll have to change the date of the first rate increase, and we can walk through those when those occur. Then, presuming adoption of both of those ordinances tonight, we will run notice in the paper again. It's called notice in report of the bond ordinance, and then, presuming all goes well, we will be circulating documents to close the week of November 6th, having a pre-closing with the State Revolving Fund officers on November 13th, and closing the bond issue on November 27th. We've walked through both ordinances before. I'd be happy to do so again. You have before you the amended rates. That's the only change in the ordinance, with the exception of removal of a separate rate for homes with a shop or office. The town has never used that rate, so that's eliminated from the rates. Very happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Council, do you have any questions?
No, thank you.
I'm not going anywhere, so if they come up,
Okay,
still here.
stay there then. Thank you. Okay. Open up to public comments, 3 minutes per person. Come to the podium and state your name and address. Okay.
One here, Chair.
Oh,
Hi.
hi.
James Paul. I just want to make sure, I appreciate, I submitted to Ethan a couple weeks ago some commonly asked questions. I thought people would have frequently asked questions. And I appreciate you guys responding to those. I just want to ensure before y'all take a vote that every measure has been identified and exhausted to ensure that any increase to the citizens of New Palette, existing citizens of New Palette, that's been offset. I know in one of the responses there was, is there any way we can increase fees for developers? And the response was, $1,000, I think. We've increased their rates by $1,000, but that didn't answer the question of, are their rates maxed out? And if not, why can't we, and how quickly can we do that?
We've exhausted the efforts on our part in the timeline that we've had. We plan on investigating some further options moving forward, but we're on such a tight timeline with the state revolving loan and these documents that in the 10 months that we've been in these seats, we haven't had much time to focus on those questions or go down that road yet. The impact fees, things like that, those are things that we're going to be looking at in the future. We haven't approved any developments. We haven't, all the developments that have been built and been approved has been prior to this council. So these are things we're going to look at moving forward. Again, the timeline that we've had, we're on such a tight timeline with all the financing options that we've had to take in consideration for this. Those things we'll have to look at moving forward. And since we haven't approved any developments or anything in the past, and in these 10 months, it wouldn't have any impact on where we're at now.
We would table this for a month, 2 months, 3 months. What's the impact? So I know that you said there's a tight timeline. I'm not familiar with why.
Would you like to explain the timeline?
Be great. So the town has applied for and received state revolving funds, wastewater. The rate that Indiana Finance Authority will do a large bond issue and then enter into financial agreements as you approved in September to pass those funds along to local communities. The rate that you received was 3.39%. Tell you, we're closing a lot of bond issues well in excess of that. This is the last opportunity to pass the ordinance, both ordinances, and to still participate in this year's state revolving fund. So a delay of a month, even a week, would probably take us out of the timeline to close on those funds this year.
And would we have to start this process all over?
We have to start the process all over again, and I can guarantee you it will not be at 3.39%. Rates are increasing, and you saved $1.5 million. I think it's the estimation with that low rate.
And the domino effect that causes on just the timeline as well as some of the other issues. Casey, what I can tell you in conversations I've had with both Jim, other council members, is that we definitely want to look at both the acreage fee and the connection fees that are associated with those things. Impact fees are a little more complicated as we've learned more about them. But those other fees, in just initial conversations, it seems as if those can be increased to some extent. We want to stay, I guess, fairly similar if we want to see development continue in the area, which offsets some of the long-term costs and customer costs for our sewage rate. So I think what we'll do, as Ryan said, we haven't approved any new developments, but I can say that those fees will be a conversation as we get closer to new developments coming on.
And Casey, I'd like to share with you, obviously tonight's meeting was a special meeting. It was called and put on the calendar because the issues that we have to vote on tonight couldn't even wait till the next regularly scheduled meeting because we could possibly miss the loan deadlines. But another concept that was discussed, and I assure you will not be dismissed without thorough consideration, is the possibility that, because everybody here knows the majority of developments occur just outside town limits, and then there's either annexation or some other form of agreement for the town sewer facility to service properties that are just outside town limits. And a notion that has come up is the possibility of a surcharge to residents who use our sewer that are outside town limits. We haven't had time to take formal action on that, but that's another consideration that will be explored because, we want to pursue every avenue we can to keep the rates as low as we can.
Additionally, Casey, so hookup fees, I think everybody talked about that. We're working on that. Impact fees are interesting because there's other things we can do. So if development's happening, we can say, hey, this lift station is in disrepair. It's on our phase 2 project that Commonwealth, identified as something we want to do. We could say, hey, we would like for you to retrofit this to the standard that they've set up and things like that, which we've already said that we would look into. And then also delay, to add on to what everybody else said. The SRF took out the loan, as Mr. Bosman said. So they already said, yep, we'll take the loan because New Palestine's already entered into agreement. We can, at the last minute, back out. We could do that. But then we would be going back to the same people that we just backed out of a loan to and said, hey, can we get that 3.3 back? And that's not going to happen. It's realistically just not going to. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I just have a question about standing up. So I hear you're just talking about how you might be studying for development.
You do
Yes,
have
sir.
to-
Sorry. Thank you.
Michael Mayer from Second Street. So this is just a follow on to what he was saying. I understand you're going to assess developers and you're going to look at impact in there. But what's the likelihood that's just not going to go in your pot and that you're actually going to apply that towards lowering the rates rather than just keeping that money in section?
Going in the pot.
Yeah, you're paying off this development, right? And,
Mhm.
and so you're going to assess them fees to the developers and everything, $1,000 per lot or $3,000, whatever it is. When you get that in, I thought I heard you saying, well, then we could lower the rates. I'm just asking, what's the likelihood you're really going to lower the rates rather than just keeping that money into your bank account?
I don't think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but there are certain things that those fees have to be applied to. They can't necessarily go directly to lowering rates. What they will help is future rates increase because we have that money for the other phases and the other improvements down the road that may be necessary for this. So while we look at these development fees and the other things associated, they may not be able to, those fees may not be able to lower your rate. What will impact your rates is the number of users. So the fees that we get from developers can't be applied to lower your rate, but those developments as they come online have the potential to lower the rates as more users come on and we spread that burden across more people.
Maybe I misunderstood, but I thought that I heard that.
No, additional hookups will lower the rate. So that's where you talk about growth and how do you manage growth, right? You have to do it the right way to not obviously bring on too many people. Also, have some of the burden of these new hookups and the additional pieces that go there. But that dollar amount for that hookup can't be applied to this.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Down the road, the more this community develops, that in the future, we could actually see a rate decrease because you're adding more users.
We could, and I know that's gotten beat up a lot of times, but there is a town nearby that has done this, right? So right now,
McCordsville did that.
yeah. So phase 2 is assuming the same 123 hookups that we already know are happening. So if any more hookups happen there, then we get to go back to the drawing board and say, okay, we added 100 that weren't in the original plan. How much will that bring it down? Whatever that number is, right? So that's the key to actually dropping this. So as you hear us talk about some of these developments that have already been approved, but we're waiting on them to start building, those are the ones that we really have our eye on to say, hey, can we get those in and start before this next projection change date? Does that answer your question? Thank you.
And to clarify, you were talking about phase 2, that we could lower that. We can't lower phase 1 that we're facing right now.
Correct.
Did everybody hear me? Okay. All right. I guess.
So I understand, my name is Ashley, I live right in town on Main Street. My name is Ashley Turk and I live on Main Street. I understand that you say like, if we don't do it now, we might not get that rate again. How many new houses are gonna be hooked up that we know of right now? Sure.
All the houses that we know for sure have been included in this rate study. In this
And
document.
so that's what's in the study. So then we're not over the limit with those houses?
With our current setup, with our current one,
Yeah.
yes. When all of the houses that are in development right now, it'll push us even more over the capacity.
Even if you guys look at where the infiltration is coming from.
Yes.
Has that
That's
been
our,
looked at?
that's what we believe from the conversations we've had with the engineers and the experts. There's no reason to not believe that.
Like the whole infiltration, that's been checked out, like the system's been checked out for everything that we can do to maintain it?
I believe so, yes.
Do you want to speak about the infiltration, Al? On a percentage base, or, you know, how much does the infiltration affect our capacity at the moment?
The infiltration is a big issue with respect to flows. I think it's easier to focus on the loadings. So your plant needs to treat excess flow and excess load. You can always pursue infiltration and flow reduction projects, and that's admirable to do. Right now, when it rains, your system uses the sewers to store the extra flow, and your pump stations are what's limiting what's going to the treatment plant. We will pursue infiltration and flow reduction projects as part of our capital improvements, not part of these projects. It'll be part of our regular budgetary projects. But right now, we're 50% overloaded in 2 of 3 parameters. That has to do with number of customers. So even if you sealed your system up completely, you're still overloaded from a POD standpoint and a suspended solid standpoint. As we put additional customers on, it continues to overload and divide.
Thank you.
I was just looking for my notes. So right now, our expectation with what's already being considered or soon to be breaking ground and approved is about 111,000 gallons per day, right? So that is just under 25% of our current capacity, and we're running right now at 90. So there's no room to add that 25% on top of our 80 to 90 regular capacity that we're running right now in our current plant. There's no room to bring those on.
And then I guess my last question is, why have they been flagged lately for the violations with like ammonia and solid waste?
My understanding is related to capacity, but do you want to speak to that, Al, as where we have been flagged so far and what our current rates associated with those are?
Right now, we've been operating within parameters. So we've had occasional violations, but nothing substantial. We're operating within the plant's factor of safety. So there's design standards associated with treatment facilities, and you have backup pieces of equipment where you can increase your air. Basically, when an engineer engineers a product, we don't engineer it to operate up to a point and then immediately it fails. We incorporate factors of safety into our design, and that's a requirement with the state. That's why we haven't seen failure yet. You're operating within your factor of safety. Now, if you see a prolonged period to where you have these excess loadings, then that's when you'll have your issues and you'll have your violations.
Right. And so, from your experience, when we throw on Willow Ridge, which is in development, and Ashton Acres, that would inevitably push us over into that dangerous zone.
You're already in the danger zone.
Fair enough.
So you're
Thank you.
saying even when they flag it for ammonia and solid waste discharge, that it's okay? That there was nothing else for him?
I don't understand your question.
Because when you get online, you can look at how the tests were done. They were flagged for ammonia and solid waste, and it tends to occur the last 2 years. I was just curious how that was all.
I'm really not aware of that, and I do I sign off on the reports. Do you know which month or
I
something?
just sent you a link to the website that I
Well,
used.
yeah, I've got it, but now there might have been something,
It's
maybe,
just been the last 2 years.
okay, like maybe last month we had a starter go out on one of the blowers, so we had trouble with the oxygen, but that would have been might be very temporary, so,
They haven't had any chronic violations.
yeah.
Thank you. Okay. So, moving on. Do I have a motion to approve the sewer rate ordinance 100224A as presented?
I'll first move that ordinance number 100224A be amended as presented in our backup materials today.
And I'll second that.
Motion approved and seconded. Any discussions?
Yes, I would propose that we move.
Two amendments.
Oh,
Okay, and then they don't get lumped together.
Okay.
okay.
A motion to approve ordinance number 100224B, Revenue Bonds Series 2024 as presented.
So we're just approving the amendment at this point, right? That's your motion, Bill?
Correct.
And I'll second the amendment to the ordinance, the first amendment, which is related to the rates.
So A. You're working on A.
We're working on A, but we're working through amendments.
They're amending, voting on an amendment now to change the rates to the lower ones that were distributed.
Correct.
Correct. And that's when I said as presented.
Exactly.
That's how it was in our backup
So I vote on
materials.
that, and then if you want to change one of the dates for the rates, I vote on that separately. I do a separate motion.
Got
You
it.
have to amend the motion.
Got it.
Okay.
You're ready to vote on the first amendment.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. 4 ayes. Motion carried to approve the ordinance one,
The amendment,
the amendment,
first amendment. to the-
first amendment.
Terry, can I suggest that maybe we read, not the whole thing, but maybe communicate the main difference in the residential and the change in that, just so that our community is aware of that particular amendment that just was approved?
Yes, be my guest.
The amendment that was just approved was to adjust the rates, and it affects all of the rates, but specific to residential family units. Again, we function on a flat rate, so phase one would be $93.80 per month, plus the $5 storm rate. And then phase two, beginning in 2026, 11 of 2026, would be $136.95 plus the $5 stormwater.
And just to further clarify, as initially published and disclosed, the single-family residential rate was advertised at $97.15. So the amendment to the rate is from $97.15 to $93.80. The phase two rate that right now is anticipated to be effective November 1st of 2026, as advertised, was $140.87, and as amended, it's $136.95. And I recognize that those changes are not significant, but we also want the record to be accurate. So those are the numbers. And just as far as clarification, that's the amendment that was just approved.
Thanks, Bill.
Okay. Now, we've amended the sewer rate ordinance.
And you-
For clarification, am I going to ask for an amendment to?
Yes.
You're going to amend the ordinance
Okay.
as it's for, not amending the amendment. The amendment's been adopted.
Okay. All
So
right.
It's a second amendment to the ordinance.
All right. I make a motion that we amend the ordinance to start phase one pricing, the date that everybody will start paying, to December 1st, 2024, to allow us to send out notification and for the community to be able to prepare for that first bill.
I will second that.
Motion approved and, sorry, take a vote.
Or if there's any discussion.
Discussion, yes.
Well, I'll note, that was a suggestion, that it was citizen comment at the last meeting for that request. And I think that request is well taken.
Yeah, I think it doesn't change any financials because what we'll have to do is we'll have to cover that through the operating expenses. But looking at those, I believe it's something that we can do and is something that we should do for the town. They've asked for that, but it will come out of the wastewater treatment plant budget operating expenses.
And that is about a $60,000
Roughly, I'd have to look.
roughly
Yeah,
about a
but roughly.
$60,000 change that we're trying to do what we can in the sense of preparing our community for these rate increases.
That's correct.
So. All right, so we've amended the sewer rate ordinance.
You've amended
The-
one
the
time.
first
Got
time.
a
Okay.
second
Now-
amendment. It's been moved and seconded and discussed.
Yeah, discussion, unless anybody has any further
Nope.
discussion, that was the discussion.
So, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Okay, now just to be clear, the ordinance has now been amended by the First Amendment and the Second Amendment. And now it's ready to be acted upon.
Right.
As amended.
Then I would make a motion that we approve this ordinance 100224A as amended, and I would move that it be approved by our council.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. Motion moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? No? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried to approve ordinance 100224A as amended. Okay. Further discussion on the amended sewer rate ordinance. Are we done?
Nope.
Okay. Now we're looking at with approval of the sewer rate ordinance. We have final approval, the revenue bond ordinance number 100224B.
I'll make a motion that we adopt ordinance number 100224B as presented in our backup materials.
I'll second the motion.
Motion approved and seconded. Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried to approve ordinance number 100224B, Revenue Bond Series 2024. Okay. I think that's it, because we moved the public comments to the beginning. Do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor? Say
Aye.
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 Meeting adjourned.